left, and then I got to go back and got to do that, and then obviously I know who the final boss is. I haven't fought Consort Radon yet, but I think I did everything else. I don't think there's anything else in that DLC that I haven't experienced.
I see. Well, that's pretty cool. I mean, it's interesting that you saved him for last because I actually, even though he is a pretty hard boss, I found him to be. Oh, it's for anyone catching into the stream now because it takes a second to go live. We're talking about the Elden Ring DLC. Um,
Nice.
Mesmer, he was difficult, but I thought the consort Radon was like he legitimately made me angry where I was like, this is like
Yeah,
so contemptuous of me as a player. I was because I know I'm not a great gamer, so like I'm always trying to keep it in keep a point of reference where it's like this is really hard for me. For somebody it won't be that hard, but then I saw other people being like, this is insane, like this is like
yeah.
his move set is completely, it's like everything. Like he has infinite mobility, infinite strength. Like it's yeah. But then I saw somebody do it without getting touched. Like he just, and I was like, okay, well, there's always one guy.
They love to do that with their DLCs, where it's like the final boss of Bloodborne Vanilla. I was like, all right. And then Orphan of Kos in the DLC, it's like, oh, I want to fucking kill myself. Like this is insane. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, they love to drop that shit in the DLCs.
yeah. The only one. I mean, overall, I love the DLC for Elden Ring. Just so everybody understands, like, the only time that I played a DLC from FromSoft where I was like, this is just hard for hard's sake was Dark Souls 3.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Parts of that I was like, and it was beautiful. I loved. I mean, like the thing is, even when their games frustrate me and when I'm having those gamer tantrum rages, like I still was like, the art direction is so beautiful. I can't.
Yeah,
I need to see what the next area looks like and feels like. I can't walk away. You know.
that DLC Dark Souls 3 had a lot of fuck you moments.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
sometimes they do those.
You're like checking the credits to see if it's like an ex girlfriend, you know, who made
I know,
it.
and it's like I remember the one that made me. It was a fuck you moment that made me actually like smile in like an angry way, where I was like, "Oh, you piece of shit." Was you like get down to the ringed city, and there's like a very obvious like field of flowers, and you walk out into it, and then in the distance some giant rings a bell, and then 10,000 ghost archers stand up and all shoot glowing arrows at you and kill you, and I'm like, oh cool. There's no way to telegraph that coming at all. You just have to die there to know it's there.
Oh yeah, yeah. They definitely they regularly do things that are like, you literally. I don't care how skilled you are, you will not be able to
Yeah.
prep for this. You have to just experience a little death.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. I mean, I guess with Elden Ring, the advantage is always though that if you're stuck, you can loop back to it, you know, through exploration
Right.
and just kind of. But yeah, when I still haven't beaten Consort Radon. I actually just I summoned help. I had like, you know, I had someone come. I had like two guys come and help me because I
No
was
shame
like,
in that. That's
yeah,
why it's there.
I just couldn't do it. I was just, you know, and I was just like, if I reach a point where I'm not having fun anymore summoning, if I'm not having fun facing a boss, that's when I just like bring in help.
Yeah, of course.
There was that dragon that I really liked in the mountains. There's that dragon where it's like he's actually not flying for most.
Oh yeah, that dude.
He was tough, but I actually beat
He
him
was
without
tough.
any help, and I was like, okay, so that means he wasn't too tough because I was able to figure it out. You know.
Not
Um,
a boss, but another thing I never managed to kill were those Wicker Men.
oh, which ones are those? I'm trying to remember the
The
Wicker.
the giant dudes that are just walking around the map near Mesmer's castle that
Oh,
are like made of sticks.
yes, I never. I know that there's supposed to be a method where you can throw flaming pots at their heads at the top and it blows them up.
Oh, okay. I didn't even know there was a trick. I just never
Yeah.
I tried like twice and I was like, I don't think this is supposed to be a thing, so I just gave up.
Yeah, no, there's a whole thing that I saw someone talking about where they set it up in one of the areas where one of the Wickermen is like kind of asleep and you're on a balcony and then he wakes up and you're like right aligned with his head. There's
Oh, okay.
something there where you're supposed to just take a flaming pot and throw it into his gullet and kill him, but like I tried it and it didn't work and I just kept dying and I was like, okay, I maybe I misunderstood something, you know. But yeah, I don't really. It's one of those things where I was like, do I need to kill these guys to appreciate the game, or you know,
Yeah.
it would have been nice if I could have like, because no matter how much I leveled up, I would just go up to them and they would kick me into the air.
Oh yeah. I think the one boss in the DLC whose move set I legitimately could not ever get a handle on. I had to summon like all the help in the world and also cheese the boss.
Hmm.
Was at the end of that like giant graveyard part where you're like jumping down the like graveyard graves that kind of look like ships.
Yeah.
And at the bottom there's like the after the boss you meet like I think it's Saint Trina, like the mushroom dude.
Hmm.
That boss where you jump down the big hole and you fall for a while and then the dude comes up on like the horse.
Yeah. Yeah.
That move set I could not for the life of me. I could not get the rhythm down. I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah, and it's
It
the
was
one where like
so
with the weird fingers or something like that.
yeah, it was so fucking aggressive and fast and unpredictable and the timing was just like that was the one boss in the DLC so far that I've just absolutely not been able to get the hang of.
See, it's weird because I found him to be much more approachable. Like I was able to beat him after like three
So
tries.
funny.
I don't understand what that is, but then other bosses, I'm just like
Yeah.
I don't know why. Like even like so you mentioned Orphan of Cause. You're gonna laugh at this. I actually beat Orphan of Cause on my first try, and then
Okay, so it must be yeah, it's because I've heard that from different people where it's like bosses I find easy, they find super difficult too. Like I didn't have a ton of issues with oh god, what's Ludwig, the Holy Blade. And then I saw other people like I fought this guy like 100 fucking times. I'm
yeah.
like, really?
That's insane to
Like,
me that you thought Ludwig
yeah,
was Ludwig ruined my summer. I was like, I can't. This guy, yeah, but he was easy for you.
I had less than 10 tries. I mean, it
Oh
wasn't
my
like
god.
first try, but it was less than 10.
Oh, that's incredible. Because for me, it wasn't even measuring it based on tries. It was like my time with Ludwig was like it was like I could have written like a young adult like YA romance novel about our time
That
together.
was my experience with Orphan of Cause. I was like, this maybe I'll just never see the end of this game. Yeah, that's so funny.
I don't know. I don't know. It must have something to do with like how different brains, like my mind approaches a problem differently than yours or something. Because it's
I think it's yeah, it's a sign of a good dev team. It probably means that the bosses aren't all being designed by the same person. They're probably designed differently for different types of people to have different levels of challenge, which
yeah,
is cool.
yeah, that is cool. Because I mean, the yeah, like I mean, I know other people who said that Consort Radon, he is really really difficult, but if you just like if you time it correctly and you figure out his move set, you can pretty much robotically finish it. And I was like, I tried. I really tried.
Yeah,
And every time I thought, and it felt like the game was in changing things every minute. Like I would try to be like, okay, this is clearly the move set. And then I figured it out. And then he's like, oh, but I also do a pirouette and a spin kick twist. And like,
is
and
there a is it a boss that lets you summon help or can you not summon help?
which one?
Consort we're done.
Yeah, no, you can definitely summon help. And it was not
Okay.
difficult to summon help because so many people were having trouble with him, thankfully. So
Yeah.
I could always summon people to help. It was weirdly when I fought in the main game, um, Radagon, the final boss.
Yeah.
It was actually really hard to summon people because I don't know if it's because everybody. I don't really understand what was happening, but it was like very hard to actually like get people to show up and um,
Interesting.
yeah. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah. It's so weird how they do that. It's I don't know. Historically, we are due for them announcing whatever their next thing is, probably before Christmas. I'm assuming at the Game Awards.
what do you think it's going to be? I want to hear
I hope.
predictions.
I mean, I'd love to see them do something else that's similar to Bloodborne, but I don't know. Elden Ring was their best-selling thing ever, so the temptation to do a sequel is probably pretty high. But I don't think they would do a Elden Ring 2 that quickly, like
Yeah,
right away. Feels too soon.
yeah,
They're not going to do another Armored Core. I mean, my dream would be for them to do a sci-fi thing with like a very lived-in Ridley Scott alien type aesthetic.
do you
Some
think
kind of junky sci-fi, some kind of lived-in junky fantasy sci-fi.
do you think they ever would?
I think they would, yeah. I think it's a matter of when.
Now, if they were to do that, like, okay, I would love to workshop a potential dream project for, like, that they would be doing. Do you
Sure.
think they would do Do you think it would have the same combat system, or do you think it would be sort of like a real overhaul, like how Armored Core is so different?
Um, I think it would be a very similar combat system, and I think it would include
Yeah.
some guns like Bloodborne did, but not many.
Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah.
I think like in like the
Hmm.
way that you shoot lasers with magic in Elden Ring, I think you'd be able to shoot some lasers, but I think the ammo for any type of weapon would be incredibly scarce. I could imagine it being very alien, that first movie, very like just
Yeah.
a weird mix of like broken down old ships, lived in junky stuff, and also weird, mysterious alien planet with ruins where they can do all the lore stuff they're so good at, all
So
the world stuff.
when you say the junky stuff, you mean like the NASA aesthetic that they kind of established in the late 70s?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think if they were to do a sci-fi thing, I think it would feel very, very junky. I think it would feel very like things are almost like slapped together and falling apart. And like I don't think anything would look like slick and like fancy and like new and shiny. I think everything would feel kind of grody and kind of like it's been there forever. Kind of like what Star Wars did, where it's like this everything's like futuristic in quotations, but it also looks like it's old somehow.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean with by the NASA aesthetic, because I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure I know you know this, but maybe people in the audience don't, that George Lucas actually purposefully wanted what he called a NASA aesthetic, which was things kind of looking broken
yeah,
down and kind of just not, like because if you look at science fiction movies of that time, they don't look like that at all. A lot of them are very pristine and shimmering and
yeah.
hyper saturated. Then you get like Star Wars, and it just feels like it's a world that's really old and that's been lived in for a long time, which is something people were not encountering. Um, and so
I
we,
could
yeah, go
also
ahead.
like see them going the route of like meta
Yeah,
barons, where it's like space cathedrals essentially.
I would absolutely love that.
Yeah, that kind of feels like what Miyazaki would probably do, which
Yeah.
would be sick.
Oh, also,
But
guys, how's my audio? Please let me know, because I can't quite tell sometimes. They both look the same on OBS, but one of them performs better, so I'm testing it out. Um, yeah, sorry, but the the problem though, I think, is that, I mean, not even a problem, just an observation that I'm seeing is that I totally imagine him doing science fiction, but it feels like his love, like Miyazaki's love of fantasy, is so intense, like it's so
yeah,
prevalent in everything he does, that I have trouble really imagining him being like, okay, so this takes place on a space station. But I guess Armored Core is pretty hardcore science fiction.
yeah, I think he would have to make the sci-fi fantasy. I think he would have to bring a ton
Yeah.
of fantasy into the sci-fi to make it work, which I think would be the secret
Yeah.
sauce. I think that's what makes it so cool. Like I can't see him caring about a whole game of like, cyberpunk, people, but I could see him doing robot knights. Like that kind of thing. I think he would be totally fine doing.
I would even I would love to see him do like almost like a world that, like let's say science fiction project, abandoned spaceship with a dark fantasy element, something like Event Horizon, or
Yeah,
like like, which is essentially Clive Barker in space.
yeah.
That would be a really good road for him, as a storyteller, because you can see him making that work and being really comfortable in that space when you see things like Event Horizon, or
Yeah. The
yeah.
obviously if their next game is there were rumors that Sony was going to acquire them from Namco, which is why Namco forced them to rush out Night Rain. If that is true, they could be working on
Ah.
a Demon's Souls or a Bloodborne sequel. The Hail Mary would be to go back to like Kingsfield, like take some old IP from the 90s that they had and like do their new take on it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. They could also I don't think they're ever going to do a sequel to Sekiro, but they might do some standalone things similar to that. But yeah, I don't know. I'm interested to see. I mean, I'll be excited no matter what it is because I know they're going to put a lot of love into it. I kind
Yeah.
of hope it's not Break 2 right away. I think I'd like them to wait a little bit longer, but I know
I don't think it would be Elden Ring 2, because I mean they just dropped Night Rain, so it's like
yeah,
you're doing like something that's not quite a sequel, but it's that, and then following up with another Elden Ring. And Elden Ring like 1 is still going so strong. You got to let that die down
Yeah,
a little bit, you know. Um,
yeah.
I would love. I mean, I don't think it's ever going to happen at this point, but like, I mean, if they ever did a Bloodborne sequel, I think I would like. I'd have to quit my job for a month and just play it.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. I'd like to see them do like what Sekiro was in another culture. Like I'd love to see them do something in like Persia, or I'd
Mm.
love to see them do something in, I don't know, like some culture that doesn't get enough love in video games. But like what they did with like, feudal Japan,
Yeah,
I could, do it somewhere else. That would be cool too.
it was really interesting to see them do it too because they're Japanese developers and they spent so much time in the European aesthetic
Yeah,
space, and then to watch them switch over to something set in Japan, and
yeah,
how immediately they captured the charm of Eastern art and like art
yeah,
direction. Like there was no moment of like awkwardness. It was like, oh yeah, no, it's like they had this really nice intrinsic understanding of the appeal of each culture, and like
yeah,
which is it just is nothing. And you can tell because every time somebody tries to imitate them, they just can't do it.
right.
They can't quite capture. It's just the talent of whoever they're hiring. I know this. It's not just one person. There's a lot of people involved, and whoever it is just yeah, they're amazing. I mean, like I know that there's like hundreds of artists who work for them, but I don't know how
Yeah.
they consistently get the most talented people. It's amazing.
It's great. It's just like the ideas. They're not even like the most technically skilled people, which I think is part of the charm. It's just really good ideas.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just, I don't know. But as always, like the thing I want the most from them is something I'm not even expecting. Like I didn't expect Bloodborne. That came out of nowhere. I didn't expect Elden Ring, which was essentially a playable version of the old Tolkien calendars,
Yeah.
which is like this is great giant glowing tree. And like this is all like imagery from like Roger Garland I saw on my mom's calendars as a kid. Like, this is crazy that they're just making a giant world of that.
Yeah, when you said the old
Um,
token calendars, I thought you were going to say the brothers Hildebrandt.
there's some of that in there too. There's a little bit. It's primarily like I had a post on Twitter that did pretty good numbers where I showed the old art from the Tolkien calendars right next to Elden Ring stuff, like things like Rhea Lucaria and obviously the trees. There's a ton, even like the summoning ghosts to help you. Like all that stuff is almost like one to one taken from that old '70s art,
Hmm.
which is it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to see
Yeah.
them like paying attention to that kind of stuff and pulling from it and using it. But it's like I don't know, just something that nobody else does. It's crazy.
Do you I do feel like this is probably not a very controversial statement, but I do think that the art of the 70s and early 80s I think is the best science fiction fantasy art.
Yeah, I think so. Probably.
Like I don't think anything else really gives me that feeling,
Yeah,
as like when I
yeah,
look
I would
at
I would agree with that.
um and it's so hard to recreate. I find it hard to really recreate. I mean, like I'm trying to do it now with this, but because it's like every time that I attempt it, I'm also very aware of the fact that like I have a bunch of misconceptions, like
Yeah,
because you're like, oh well, the colors were more brilliant. Well, were they actually? Because like Frazetta was among the most famous, and he actually had really muddy colors with
yeah,
sporadic, like, and they're like, oh, well, no, it's because of the texture. And it's like, well, some of the paintings don't even have, they don't have this necessarily like, this grain over it that makes you think of an 80s film. And yet in your head, you see it with texture. And it's like, I've been watching videos about it, like how to create images that feel the way that like movies in the 80s look when you look at them, and they were describing their very specific color palettes that were used because of the type of film they were using in the 80s. And it's like they had film that they made greens really like pale, and they made reds really ostentatious, and like the blue sky always read as white in 80s movies. Like it's like all this stuff that's like very specific that your brain takes in and like makes this. It's like it turns it into like a composite understanding, which is
yeah,
just but I don't really know. I mean, like the best I can do is just try to capture like a certain energy, you know, that feels like the stuff I like when I was a kid because I can't quite match the rest of its traits, you know.
Yeah, I get that. Definitely. It's an aesthetic that I don't know. There's so many solutions in the 80s for how things looked were born out of like what can we do and like what can we afford to do and like what's cheap enough to do. That like my one of my favorite effects from the 80s that was used in all kinds of stuff was when they would drop
Yeah.
like ink into water and film it and then just superimpose it over the sky to make like spooky clouds.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they do it in Ghostbusters above the building at the end.
They
It's like,
they do it in Never Ending Story, I think, when they're
yeah,
into nothing.
and they're just the coolest looking clouds you've ever seen, and they're not even clouds. It's just ink plumes and water that were superimposed into the sky because that was a cheap thing to do that looked cool. But it's like it's just very funny to me that like it's not even clouds. It's just a really good solution to the problem. And in my mind now, those are the best clouds.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was actually, you made me think of this. This is related. I was somebody had me on their podcast to talk about Black Mirror like a year ago when it was coming out. And they were like, "What do you say to this comment somebody left?" And I was like, "What?" And they're saying some people have said, or he when he said some people, I'm pretty sure he meant like one person, but
Sure.
because I don't think I'm popular enough to have multiple people saying the same thing. It's like, but he said that they had said that they actually noticed that my art style sometimes shifted depending on the page. Like I would go for something, you know, and which is something I'm really guilty of. Like you're supposed to be kind of over that phase as a professional, that you're like not
Right.
that you kind of know how you draw, but I still would like change the pen I'm using and then that'll change the way I draw. And he was like, "Well, what do you like, is there a reason for that?" And my answer was that I and this is like really sincerely what I think is that the things I liked growing up, like you mentioned Ghostbusters and things like that, there is a feeling like they're just trying different stuff.
Yeah.
And like even like you play the original Final Fantasy, there's cutscenes that look entirely different in terms of the generate like how they generate the image than other cutscenes.
Yeah.
You know, in some of the cutscenes, it's like really nice, but it also still looks like pixelated, not like pixies. And then there's other cutscenes where suddenly the characters are looking very much more traditionally realistic with different proportions. And it's just like they're just kind of. And I'm not saying I aspire to inconsistency, but I was like, I really don't mind if it feels like, you know. And then I thought about the Lord of the Rings, and that's the last time that I ever saw a major blockbuster movie that felt like it was like it's pretty experimental. That's why you get some awkward
Yeah.
shots in the movie. You know, when Frodo wakes up in Rivendell and he's like floating in that white space, and you're like,
Yeah.
and
That
you're
in between.
yeah, and you're looking up at Elrond's face when he's like Ulungala, you know,
Frodo.
yeah,
You're like, okay, all right, I
yeah,
get it,
and
but
they
no.
look like pictures like they look like floating faces from like
Yeah.
some award show memoriam of people who died between award shows. It's like this really
Yes.
um and it's like that's because they were just trying different effects at the moment because they're just, you know, they're just open to that. And I don't know, even though it's an awkward shot, it makes me smile because I'll take that over the algorithmic uniformity of a lot of things now, you know.
Yes.
So
It's the two that I always go back to when I think about that are how insanely good the ring wraiths look when he puts the ring on Weathertop and they turn into the white versions.
incredible, yeah.
Looks insanely flawlessly perfectly good.
Yeah.
And then Galadriel does her Dark Lord, you would have a queen thing, and it looks very not finished. And I'm like, oh, that's funny
Yeah.
that these are like this in the same movie. Like this, very
Yeah,
interesting. That
that extremely polished thing, and then that Photoshop effect where she kind of looks like J Lo.
yeah, yeah. And I'm like, this is very funny that you completely nailed one of these, and the other one feels like it's not quite done yet.
Yeah,
But
because
yeah,
it was probably a lot harder to work with a real human subject instead of a puppet, you know.
yeah,
Also, but there is a frame in there where when her eyes get really dark, if you
yeah.
really look at it, she looks exactly like Jennifer Lopez for a minute.
That's very funny.
You next time you watch it, you're gonna hear my voice in your head when you see it. There's a part where her eyes turn black and they kind of like change the contrast on her face.
Yeah, yeah.
And in that moment, if you freeze it, it's like straight up J Lo 2003. It's like her exact face to the point where like I kept thinking someone else has to notice this. Someone else has to see this. Um, but yeah, that's
Yeah.
I putting that out there for you, internet. Find it, find the scene and see it.
There's also like just in like the Balrog sequence, there's shots that look
Yeah.
so fucking good. And then there's shots that look like really silly.
What
And it's
comes to
like
mind is silly in that scene?
um the shot where they're standing on the steps and they have to rock the steps back and forth to fall down and escape. The
Mm-hmm.
compositing on that and the framing of it is so it's like so obviously digitally inserted and weird. And then they run the corner and then the Balrog flares up in front of Gandalf and everything is just flawless. And you're
Yeah.
like, what is going on?
Oh, you're
But
talking about that part where it kind of like and this happens a couple of times in that trilogy where you can see them kind of shake, like you can see the
yes,
figures like almost like
yes.
vibrating on top of the background because they don't quite
And
fit.
the outsides of the characters get kind of fuzzy because they're like compositing them onto a 3D scene and it's
Yeah,
not quite working.
yeah,
But like that wasn't super noticeable in the theaters at the time because you'd never seen anything like it. It's only noticeable in retrospect because now it's a little more jarring because special effects are so good.
yeah,
But yeah, I don't know. There's scenes in that are just insanely perfect,
yeah. And
and then some that are a little wonky.
I
You know?
wonder if they had less time for that scene, for that exact scene you're describing, because I know that they said that Peter Jackson made that a sequence because of a piece of concept art, and at the last minute they turned it into a scene.
So funny.
Have you heard? You've heard
That
that, I'm
felt
sure, right?
very. Yeah, I've heard it. I've heard something like that. I'm not
It's
sure.
so the Bridge of Khazad-dûm, there's, everybody knows the sequence where it's like in three parts. It's like broken up the bridge and then they have to
Yeah.
jump and it's this big moment where all the characters, trust each other and all that stuff. The That actually was not in the script at all. So the reason
So
it ended
funny.
up in the movie was because there was a concept artist doing different versions of the Bridge of Khazad-dûm, and in one of them he drew it with I think it might have been Alan Lee
Okay.
or John Howe, one of them. I think it might have been Alan Lee because he's just like insanely
Yeah.
brilliant. But he drew a version of it with this like huge break in it, and Peter Jackson saw it, and he's just sitting in the office being like, "Oh, this is really." He's like, muttering to himself, and then he like goes to the producers and he's like, "I have an idea for a sequence because of what Alan drew," and then he puts it together. And they just at the last minute they just added all this stuff into the movie that wasn't even going to be there, and it becomes like an 8 minute sequence with like a huge amount of money behind it, all because this one piece of concept art was just so awesome that it just like got him going.
That's so great. That's the stuff I love to hear.
Yeah.
It, it's just funny because like there's parts in that trilogy that I
Hmm.
can tell I'm like, oh, Peter Jackson like plays video games,
Oh
or
yeah.
it's like when they're rocking back and forth on that broken piece of stone to make it go forward. Like I don't know if anyone's done this, but you could superimpose the UI on the bottom that's like tilt the L and R sticks to like rock the ridge. I'm like, this is just a fucking video game like QuickTime event. This is so funny.
Yeah.
A lot of the Legolas stuff feels like QuickTime events from like a God of War game,
Oh
but
man. Yeah, I could see that. Oh, what do you think of the Zelda casting?
I don't think the kid. I think the Zelda casting's fine. I think the Link casting is it doesn't look anything like Link.
Yeah, well, I don't really remember his face exactly. He just didn't really. I mean, I don't feel too strongly about it because I never really played much Zelda.
Yeah,
But I know that the lady that got to play Zelda looks exactly like you would imagine.
yeah,
Um,
she's great.
the guy playing Link, I get what you're saying. It's like, oh, he doesn't look exactly, but I can imagine they might have something in store for him that's going to look really cool.
I
Um,
hope so. I hope so. The photos I've seen of him and other stuff, he always has like a I don't know how to describe it, like a pouty, scrunchy look on his face.
yeah,
Like
scowling.
my lips are pursed and my eyes are squinting, and
Uh
I'm
huh.
like, this feels a little. I don't know. He feels like a character. He feels like an actor who'd get cast to play like villains almost.
Yeah, he looks like
He's got
he's
like
gonna
a
be a bully from Stranger Things or something.
yeah. He's got like a sour look on his face from like, oh, this guy is trouble or something. But
Yeah, maybe that's what I mean. They might be going for something interesting because it's like to contrast because it's like Link is also the way he's drawn in that Japanese style. He has a kind of feminine beauty to him,
Yeah,
and I
for
feel
sure.
like maybe they want to offset it from Zelda because they're making her so like traditionally gorgeous. Like the actress they got, I remember seeing her face and being like, "Is that real?" I actually thought it was AI because I was like, "Do real humans actually have features like this?"
Yeah,
You know?
and it's like I don't know. It's one of those things where what are you gonna do? Like no one's really gonna. At least it's not Tom Holland. Like everyone was worried it was
Oh
gonna be Tom
no.
Holland. At least it's not Tom Holland. I can't think of anyone who could really play Link. It's very like they'd have to go with a complete unknown. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
Like
I don't know.
a young Elijah Wood before Lord of the Rings might have been that.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, oh my god, I never even thought about that it could have been Tom Holland. I think somebody might have made a joke about it if I'm remembering correctly, and then like the internet was like, please God no.
yeah.
Um,
Everybody was worried that they were just going to go for MCU actors for the whole thing, because that would be the thing that execs tell them to do.
hmm
So everybody was like, it's going to be Tom Holland as Link and Dave Bautista as Ganon, which could work. I think Dave Bautista could probably do that.
Yeah, I could. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, he's a really good actor. I will give him credit.
yeah, he could probably do that. The other thing is that the Link actor has like really dark hair, and I don't know how. I'm assuming they're going to give him a wig. I don't think they're going to lighten his hair artificially, but like I don't know how good he's going to look in a wig. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
He's got like black hair.
Yeah, no, he does. He reminds me of like someone you'd see on yeah, like Stranger Things, like because somebody like the curly black hair. He reminds me of what's that kid Wolfheart?
Actually, since I'm talking to you,
Yeah.
he looks like someone who'd be a perfect casting for like a young Mordred.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got that look where
Mm-hmm.
he's like, I'm kind of pretty and I'm like kingly, maybe, but also something's wrong with me. It's like I'm not necessarily a good guy. He's got that weird kind of intrigue look. I don't know.
Yeah, I could see that completely, especially if you go for like young Mordred. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I had to like make a leap in my head because the version of Mordred that I'm currently working with is like very much an adult with a.
yeah,
Although I think I already told you I'm gonna make a reveal. This is a spoiler for some people who haven't read. It hasn't come out yet, but that when he takes off his helmet, Mordred has like the face of like a toddler, like a weird demented 7-year old.
yes,
Um,
yes,
I'm excited to do that because I've never drawn anything that gross in that way, like conceptually
yeah.
gross. I mean.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think you remember that was like one of our earlier conversations. I think.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I just don't.
We were talking about my favorite thing from the Borman version is that they artificially age up Mordred, and he's got the mind of a child who pulls like wings off flies, but
Yeah,
the power of like an adult body. And it's
man.
like, yeah, it's awesome, awesome and terrifying.
Yeah, that's like and that's a really good idea for a villain. I mean, it I want to lean into that because that's a very unique villain. I feel like so many villains in traditional hero stuff, there's a particular MO.
Yeah,
And the idea of making your villain a sadistic, out of control child, like a spoiled little boy, is actually really scary. I mean, Lord of the Rings, I mean, not, Game of Thrones touches upon that, but Joffrey himself isn't really a threat. It's the power he wields. Um,
yeah,
but like making the character himself a legitimate threat is actually like, yeah, I like that idea a lot. And I've just been kind of running with it.
it's
Um,
very good.
I'm working on a page for it right now, and I think I'm like maybe 20 pages into this thing. But man, the thing about drawing is that there's a lot of it. That's
Yep.
something I learned.
Yeah. When you start, there's a lot more to do.
Yeah, I just feel like it's like in that scene in Poltergeist where the mom at the last scene she's running down the hallway and the
Yeah.
door keeps getting
Yeah.
further away.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah,
That's
that's
very true, actually.
like
That's incredibly accurate.
I want to
Incredibly accurate
I want to make
description.
a meme of that and just label it like me, and then it's like my goals or something, or like the end of
Yes.
this comic. It's just
Making a graphic novel.
yeah. Well, I think Dave said in one of his streams, he's like every comic artist reaches a point where you're like really psyched in the beginning, and then when you get to the end, you're like, I just have to finish this, or I'm gonna before I die. I just like I don't even care
Yeah,
anymore, you know.
yeah,
I'm not quite there yet. Like I'm still enjoying it. And maybe it's because I don't have an editor breathing down my neck about this, so I can just kind of enjoy the
mhm,
process. But I'm also having that thing of like, if I'm gonna have this out in 2025 at all, I need to like either work faster or I have to shorten what this issue is going to be, and like maybe make it a shorter prologue to the rest of the series just so I can have it out, or whatever.
right.
Because right now it's like this might, I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking about, can I workshop it with you a little bit? Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
Um,
always.
so you, as you know, it's starting with the Battle of Camlin.
Yep.
And I'm thinking I was gonna add a little bit of like jumping into the next story, meaning going back to the beginning, like the cycle of Arthur.
Hmm.
But I'm also wondering maybe it's better to just, you know, just like end it there at the Battle of Camlin and then treat it as a prologue and then have the next chapter start, in the next book and have that start at, what I mean, instead of, and let it be like a solid 35 pages instead of like the usual 84 to 90 pages I go for.
So let's think how both would look.
Yeah.
So if you did the straight up battle, how would you have it end, and what would be like the final like page? What would that look like?
So the thing I have in mind is thank you for asking that. That's such a great question. I'm so excited to tell you what I have.
Yeah.
It's right now it's the moment that Arthur puts on his helmet again, and it's
Okay.
like this moment of like the realization that that's his real crown, not the crown that Mordred took. So
Okay.
when he puts on the helmet, it's kind of like Blade putting his sunglasses on,
Yep.
but no techno music, sadly.
Yep.
And then it's him and the knights finally all full power reunited in this big, and it's going to be like maybe a couple of pages of them facing off against Mordred's troops, and then Mordred is like, okay, bring out the Dread Knights, and he brings out his 13 knights that are like the perversion of Arthur's 13, essentially.
Okay.
And then Arthur and his knights versus the Dread Knights in this like big open field. Then Lancelot comes over the hill, much like Borman's Excalibur,
Hmm.
and it's this revealed thing that he betrayed Arthur, but this is his redemption, and that in their duel, the whole idea with this one is that they had a duel essentially um, over Guinevere, and Arthur shattered Excalibur in a fit of rage during the fight, much like he did in Borman's Excalibur. But the idea is that the light from the spark of Excalibur shattering blinds Lancelot because he looks right into it when it happens, and so he's been blind for the past few years, and but he can still fight in this battle because he can still, the only thing he can actually see is the light from Excalibur, knowing that it's been reforged.
Okay.
So long as he fights next to Arthur, he can see, almost like how Daredevil sees sound. He can like see
Right.
he can see the light of Excalibur illuminating the battlefield. So it's like almost like he's being directed by God, or to stand next to Arthur and help him win.
Okay.
And then Mordred comes out finally, big end boss battle, and Lancelot offers to face him, and obviously Arthur's like, no, 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 he's my son, I'll kill him. It's only polite, and
Yes.
then they have their big showdown, and I'm not exactly sure what it's going to be because I was thinking it'd be really cool if because you know how I drew Morgana as like
Hmm.
a snake on his arm, like whispering to him. I thought it'd be cool if she became a giant serpent who like kind of like a like maybe as Arthur's facing Mordred, Lancelot is facing off against the serpent, kind of like
Yeah, I like that.
Conan the Barbarian type of thing.
Sure.
But he kills Mordred, and it's like this kind of
Also works on a thematic level because
tell.
it's a symbol of temptation, and
That's yeah,
he gave into temptation, and now he's fighting the symbol of the temptation.
yeah. No, you're totally picking up what I'm putting down because the whole point is
Yeah.
Arthur. If you have Arthur fight a symbol of temptation, it's not quite as powerful because that's not really where he
No,
struggled.
he didn't succumb. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but instead, the real challenge for Arthur is having to kill his own son because his first instinct is mercy, and then having to like, in order to save my people, I have to kill this person who comes literally from me.
Yeah.
But I like the idea also of Lancelot facing Morgana because she sort of orchestrates the downfall of Camelot in a lot of
Right.
ways, and so it's like him redeeming himself is like facing off against the architect of his own temptation. It's like all this stuff, you know.
Mhm.
So he kills Mordred, and uh, instead of Lancelot killing Morgana, I thought it'd be really interesting if once Mordred dies, Morgana, like her snake form dissipates and she just becomes this her witch self. The design I showed you, where it's like the woman with the black
Sure.
eyes, and I thought it'd be cool if instead of her being slain, she like walks off into a field, and as she's walking off, she sort of decomposes with each step, kind of like
Yeah, you could treat it almost like a lich, or like
yes,
he's like a phylactery. She puts so much of her power into him that once he's gone, it's like, oh no. Like
yeah.
so much of myself was in that thing that isn't here anymore that I'm like fading.
That's exactly what I'm. That's precisely the way I was thinking about it. That it's like
Yeah, it's a good idea.
she invested so much into Mordred that once he's slain, it's almost like it's like the pulling the inside of a vacuum out, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, and I kind of imagine her death would look a lot like we've talked about the amazing cinematography of like Passion of the Christ.
Yep.
When they show that last shot of the devil where
Yeah.
she is looking up at the sky while maggots are coming out of her mouth, and it's this.
Mhm.
I kind of want to do something like that. It's like and it's like I kind of thought it'd be cool if she dies in private, like she walks away and nobody follows her because they know, you know. But
Yeah.
the only person who sees her death is Merlin, like he's watching from a few feet away.
Sure.
Because the idea, I something that I was hinting at in the battle was that she's like her goal is like she's like, oh yeah, you're gonna beat Arthur, that's great, and you're gonna take Camelot. She's like, but what I really want is I want the eyes of Merlin. I want you to take, because I think I told you that in the version I was going for, it was this idea that Merlin, he has that one eye that's always like kind of lazy and pulls to the side,
Mhm.
and that when his eye goes lazy like that, it's because he's looking into your future and your past.
Right.
It's almost like the eye pull. So she's like, I want that eye. Um,
Right.
so Merlin kind of gets to be the one to watch her like cough up maggots and die and all that, you know. Anyways, so then it would end with that scene of him dying, and then we would show the funeral. Well, before the funeral, there's like, because he goes to Avalon to heal and rest, and
Mhm.
I thought it'd be really cool if the uh, oh my god, what's his name? Galahad shows up as the because at this point he's already died because he's already taken the Grail and ascended to heaven and
Right.
everything. So then Galahad rides in as like the patron saint of knights, and like the he's like an archangel now or something like that, kind of like a like
Mhm.
and now his whole thing is that he ushers the souls of heroes into Avalon. So people who haven't seen, they saw him, ascend as per the legend. He like ascends into heaven like a straight line, but then he comes back and it's like, he's on a white horse and shimmering. I really want to play with that design. He takes Arthur's body to Avalon, and then we would end with this scene that I wrote where Merlin he goes to his home in the tree, and he's just showing how he perceives the world, and it's like a series of tapestries that all represent different periods of time, and he just
Mhm.
he kind of rolls the tapestries back like a bunch of sliding screens in front of him, and it goes back to the beginning, which is the moment Arthur first hears the voice of Excalibur calling to him from the lake before the lake level goes down in the so it's just and then it boom, and then we end right there. Like we roll back the camera to show back when England was a village, and then it's like letting you know, okay, now we're going to start the beginning. And the last thing Merlin says is like, we have that each time the story happens, it happens differently. So letting
Mhm.
people know, like, you're not this is not a story you already know the ending to. Instead, I'm showing you the ending that you would have gotten if I had done a straight translation, and now I'm doing a different version, with some other aspects to it. And then
Right.
we end
Okay.
there. That's the idea.
So then the
Yeah.
second version where in the middle it cuts back, what is your thought for that? Where would it jump in the middle back in time?
It would go further. It would go into Arthur, the moment that Merlin appears in Camelairn before it becomes Camelot. So
Okay.
it would be like it would be like Merlin appearing in Camelairn for the first time in like a generation, and like it would really, a lot of it would be building up the appearance of Merlin, because I had all these scenes where like Sir Ector is talking to Bedivere and he's like, you don't, he's like, I don't really, you like, they're debating whether or not Merlin is actually immortal, and then finally he's like, I saw him when I was like 12 and I'm old as hell now and he's not,
Yeah.
so you're building it up, and then they're bracing Arthur for the conversation with Merlin. They're like, listen, don't lie to him because he'll know. Don't, like, just because everybody's a little bit scared of him, and there was this idea that Merlin's like a they're like these relative to the time they live in, they're these modern Christians, and then Merlin is like represents the old druidic ways that are a little bit scary to them, but they also like respect it and they're scared of it, and
Mm.
so you just build up his entrance, and then he shows up, and it's like leaving on a cliffhanger of like Merlin appearing in Camelairn. But I don't know. When you say it out
Okay.
loud, the first one seems to have a stronger ending point.
Um, I'm torn. My instinct is to do a version of the, and again, this is all grain of salt.
Mm-hmm.
My instinct is to do a version of the second one where you show the battle happening and it gets to a very dire point, and then it's kind of like it's sort of like what Berserk does, where it's like here's a little bit of black swordsman and then whoa, golden age. You go
Mm-hmm.
all the way through the golden age, and then you finally get back to where it started. You're like, oh, now I understand why we're here. My instinct is to do a version of that where the battle plays out, it gets really dire, and then you jump back. The framing device for jumping back probably would have to be centered around Merlin. Maybe Merlin and Arthur are having a conversation in their minds while the battle's happening or something, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe Merlin's reminiscing, or maybe Arthur's asking, like, you've seen this battle 100 times, like, do we win? And like, I don't know. It's some version of them having a discussion and either Merlin giving him a final lesson or just a reminiscence of like, think back to everything that brought you here kind of thing, and
Mm-hmm.
then jump back. But my instinct would be to show the battle, have the battle take a very bad turn, and then jump back in time before you find out exactly what happens to Arthur.
So you would even not even show the conclusion of the battle until you went through the entire legend and then circled back to the beginning.
Possibly. Because if you show the death of Arthur and the Archangel stuff now, what is the ending of the comic later? Do you just show the same thing again, or does the ending change?
Yeah, it changes completely. Yeah,
Okay.
because the whole idea, the pitch that I kind of had for this back when I was thinking I was going to do it with a publisher, was that it's that Merlin being someone who lives in cycles, that each of the Arthurian cycles is actually just a different experience of the legend through Merlin's eyes, that he's like, he recognizes that he might have a chance to delay or alter the what we see as like the traditional end of Camelot, where
Okay.
he's like, actually, if I try to prevent some of these things from happening, but then because his memory is always foggy because he's lived so many times, it's like he's kind of an unreliable protagonist as far as like altering it. He
Right.
can kind of go by instincts and be like, he's always, so this version of the story, it was going to be like, after we do that, Merlin is like really weary of Lancelot when they encounter him later. He's like, I don't like this guy, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And then having an alternate version of the story where this time maybe Lancelot actually doesn't have sex with Guinevere, where he's like, actually, I think I don't want to do that because I don't want to destroy my entire life. And then like showing them working through that, almost like talking it out, which I know doesn't sound very sexy or interesting, but I have a good plan for it.
Mhm.
And then what that does for like the last battle, and the idea being that Mordred and Morgana, they kind of it's almost like Mordred, I wanted to show him as like a universal constant. Like, okay, they prevent that particular rise of Mordred, but then he still comes because he's like this dark being that's always trying to manifest itself in our world in different ways.
Right.
So it's like, even though, yeah, you prevented that one, he's still going to try to come and take Camelot because it's like he's just this universal constant that's like, yeah, he's just always trying to find a way into the world.
You could also play with the idea that magic is balance, and if this thing exists, this other thing necessarily has to exist.
Yeah, that's
Like,
I love
you
that. Yeah.
yeah, okay. So knowing that now, I think, yeah, I think showing the death of Arthur after the battle and all that can work. Now that I know that the ending is going to be different than that. So yeah, I'd probably go with the first one you were talking about and go through all that. And then the only thing that would need some fleshing out in my mind is the framing device of how we jump back. What is the process, or what's happening with Merlin where it jumps back in time? Because you don't want to end the issue like it's the end. You want to end the issue with the cliffhanger of, oh, we just reset the clock.
Yeah. So the device would be Merlin, essentially, having almost like a soliloquy or a monologue out of a play where he's talking about like that the story gets told many times, and this time he wants to try something. It's almost like it's like he experiences the world without time. So for him, it's like it's a matter of almost like giving it another draft. And
Okay.
so I wanted to make it clear to the audience that it's going to be different because I don't want them to think they just watched the ending of the story before the beginning. Instead, they saw the ending of one cycle and the beginning of another,
Okay.
which was diplomatic on my part because what I really wanted was to let people know like that version that still exists, even if I change the ending.
If you do show were you going to actually show tapestries?
Yeah, I was actually thinking I would either illustrate some or I would actually use public domain ancient tapestries, which I don't see the need not to. I mean, like they're beautiful, and I'm not taking
Yeah.
credit for them. I mean, they were painted like 400 years ago. They're gorgeous. Why don't I just throw them in?
I think the fun thing to do if you go that route when you show the tapestries is show multiple versions that already exist of the Camelot story on the different tapestries that like you could reference the Borman one, you could reference other ones of like, here's how this played out all these other times. And they're not shown literally, they're shown in the form of like the weavings. But little things like, Arthur dies this way in this one, Arthur dies this way in this one, you know,
Oh,
this stuff like that. Like just reference the different ways the story's been told and kind of imply that all of them could be true.
yeah, they all happened somewhere.
Yeah.
I like that. I actually really like the idea. I mean, I would have to. It'd be cool to almost like. So you're almost saying like doing single panel illustrations that look a bit like the Borman movie, and another that looks a bit like,
Yeah,
you
you
know.
could almost do like a zoom out where it's like, show Arthur in his tomb with the archangel and then kind of fade it over to the next panel and it's that exact same drawing shown in tapestry form,
Mm-hmm.
and then have like voiceover like, and that was the tale of Arthur, blah blah blah, and then zoom out, and then it's that same shot of him in the tomb with the archangel, but also it's the battle of Camlin you just saw before that drawn around it. And
Mm.
it's a story you've heard many times, blah 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 blah, and you may have heard different versions. Zoom out even further. Now there's multiple tapestries, and Arthur's dead in the same spot on all of them, but how they happened are all different.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that.
I Something like that I think could work.
Yeah, because it's like you got to make it visually clear that it's not going to be repetitive. Otherwise, you lose the audience a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, and I've honestly second guessed myself with the whole approach of starting it with the final battle because it seems I don't know, it's kind of a risk, but I also thought maybe it isn't because it's like if I don't, then the alternative is to start it in a way that's very familiar to people, which is you start with young Arthur,
Right.
or you start with Uther being a prick, and it's like either way. I think I want to like show the appeal of the book at the very beginning, which is like look at these knights and how cool they are, like just
Right.
it's like when it's like because I take this approach. I know that the comics and literature are not video games, but video games are a really good source to look at as far as like if you start your story with action and mystery, you have your audience in the palm of your hand for the rest of the trip.
Well, okay, think about it this way. Think how many people would have not enjoyed Lord of the Rings if it started with a
Yep.
party in the Shire and a bunch of hobbits
Yep.
just having a party and drinking.
Oh, totally.
You need that battle scene with the voiceover in the beginning where it's like, hey, the last alliance of men and elves and Sauron, and here's a huge fucking war, and look how fucking awesome this world is, and
Yeah.
get ready for a crazy fantasy adventure that looks like this, and then you pull back and then you world build for an hour and a half, and then you start introducing
Oh, that's
that stuff. Like,
it's
yeah,
yeah, no, it's a great example. It's actually that's like there I cannot tell you how many people I've seen who think that are just like, "Oh, this sounds lame. It's about a guy with a magic ring." And then they watch that opening sequence
yeah,
with 10,000 elves versus 10,000 orcs in this like
yeah,
dreary battlefield. People are like, "Oh shit, this is fucking rad." You know, like
yeah,
and it I mean Ian McKellen had talked about it, and he said that he felt very strongly that it was Peter Jackson taking the audience's hand and being like, "Come on, it's gonna be fun. You're gonna like it.
yeah,
It's good. Don't worry." You know,
yeah.
um, and it was, and it's super super successful. It's like a brilliant way to do that.
Yeah,
Um,
so I think copying that is perfectly acceptable. I don't, especially because the ending of the comic isn't going to be the exact same thing we see play out, so you're not giving away anything.
yeah, no, it's definitely not like the um, the ending I had in mind because I actually what I really wanted to do was give this ending. If you do you mind if I elaborate a little more or no?
No, go ahead.
Is that I wanted to give this ending that people know, at least my version of it, and then because the ending I was going to do for the the trilogy proper that we're doing, me and my co-writer, was this idea of taking the search for the Grail and making that the third installment, the third and final part of the trilogy of books. Um,
Nice.
because I liked, I mean, I think the Grail quest is great. It's awesome. But I wanted to give it some stakes where it's not just them looking for the Grail because they're searching for glory. It's because they're like trying to, the idea that they have some idea that the Black Plague is making a third, because in real life, the Black Plague had two waves. There was the first plague and then there was the second. And
Yeah,
the idea is that there's, the forces of evil that are unnamed at this point are like looking to have a third wave of the Black Plague because they want to diminish the world's population as much as possible in order to install a new power over both the
sure.
East and the West. So it's this huge thing where it's like the only thing that can stop the plague is the healing power of the Grail. So the knights have to find it as a way, which I thought was a nice little neat way of tying it into history.
Yeah, I think so.
And so that I wanted that to be the final chapter of the whole thing, is like the battle in the Holy Land for the Grail, and I thought it'd be cool if I had the knights of the Middle East and the knights of the West like teaming up, like or at least their Middle Eastern equivalent, like it
Sure.
was really cool. I thought it'd be just really cool to dive into like Islamic heroism and
Oh yeah, it'd be, no one ever does it. It would be rad.
yeah, especially after
Some of my favorite stuff.
yeah. I mean, I know that I was thinking of you actually because I know that your favorite your favorite aesthetic seems to be like the
Yeah,
Persian Far East.
100%.
Yeah.
100,000%.
What is it about it I mean, there's a lot of things I love about it, but I want to know what about it draws you in.
Um, the aesthetic, like visually, is just everything. Like the appreciation for art just as a thing. Like in in a lot of Western stuff, which I also love. I love cathedral architecture. I love church aesthetics. I
Yeah.
love some of my favorite stuff. I've modeled a lot of the house I built over that kind of
Yeah.
look. But
I noticed.
yeah, so I love that. But the thing about that is it's always serving a purpose. It's
Hmm.
always like, hey, we're gonna, glory to God, this kind of thing. We're gonna build this thing because we were commissioned to by these people, because glory to God. But in the Persian stuff, it's just everything is covered in these patterns and these ornate things just for the sake of the art. It's like this display of like not necessarily wealth, but like this appreciation of the forms. And because of how Islam worked at the time and still works in a lot of ways today, they can't show any kind of idolatry. So there's no like
Figures.
there's
Yeah.
no there's yeah there's not really any figures or faces on anything. So the 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 solution to that is just these incredible patterns and this beautiful artwork that's just there to just be beautiful, and to just every inch of everything is just covered with the most amazing, painstakingly detailed, beautiful patterns you've ever seen. And they're just there because the people thought they were beautiful and they wanted to appreciate them. They're not serving a purpose the way that a lot of Western stuff does, where it's like, we're going to draw this guy, and you're going to look at this guy and feel real bad for him, and then you're going to come and pay a tithe. It's like, it. There's no like, I don't. This is a harsh way to put it, but a lot of the Renaissance was about like audience manipulation. It
Oh
was a
yeah.
lot of like, how do we get people back in the church because people aren't coming anymore? And a lot of that was just through like splendor and just like, selling this like this magic trick of like, when you come to this place, you're going to feel transported, and only we can give you this feeling, and then you're going to believe in a higher thing because we're giving you that experience. And all the art was like downstream from that. But in the Eastern stuff, the art's just there because they just want everything to be beautiful. And it's it's
Yeah.
it's very strange.
Where I
But yeah,
would where I would part from your assessment in the smallest way is actually that I don't think it was. I mean, like you said, audience manipulation. I think that's definitely a part of it, but only in the sense that it's Western art is at that point historically is very, even now, is very concerned with narrative.
yes.
So if you look
When
at
I say, I should be more specific.
no,
When
it's
I
okay.
when I say audience manipulation, what I'm talking about very specifically, a lot of people think that the Renaissance giving us realistic art just happened naturally. Just, people were doing art for a long time,
Hmm.
and suddenly they were doing art so long, art started to look realistic, and you get your Michelangelos and your Leonardos just because people were doing it for so long. That's actually not really what happened.
Yeah.
Read a lot of art history. What happened is people stopped going to church. Things got so bad in a certain time period after the Dark Ages that people had basically given up completely. And there was a big push.
Yeah.
There's a big push in religious circles of, how do we make Jesus a relatable character again? How do we make him someone people look at and they see themselves? And a big part of that was, we have to make him look like a person. He can't be like a little depiction, like a little carving on a wall, a little weird, wonky stick figure guy. Like, he can't. He has to look like a human. He has to look like you're walking down the street and you see this painting and it feels like a person standing there next to you. Because then he's not a metaphor; he's a real being.
Hmm.
And they dumped a ton of time, and there's like an arms race basically of artists trying to figure out how to make art more realistic as a result from this. One of them
Yeah.
was, yeah, I think it's the School of Athens was like the first painting that really used like single point perspective in like a really, really efficient way, where it's like, there's still some stuff in that painting that doesn't feel 100% real, but it looks like a 3D space you could step into, which wasn't something anyone had seen at the time. So that was like a magic trick. People saw that and they thought they could like fall into the wall.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, like, so there was a very deliberate push of, how do we make the people in these paintings, how do we make Jesus look like a real person? So when I say audience manipulation, I just mean they wanted them to feel an emotional reaction to the art that they weren't getting from the very like primitive stuff before the Renaissance, where it was very stick figurey. They wanted something you'd look at and you'd feel empathy for the
Yeah.
painting because it looked like a real person. And
Yeah.
that's all I mean by that. I don't mean manipulation in like a super cynical negative way.
No, no,
But
I understood you completely. No, I mean, what
yeah,
also, I don't see the word manipulation to me is not really even inherently negative, because if you're watching a movie and it's making you feel something, that's like the proper application of manipulative,
yeah,
you know. Like Steven Spielberg is a manipulative director because he knows how to like cue John Williams music and have the right camera angle and have the right line of dialogue that makes you feel like, something. So no, I understood you completely, but yeah, I just feel like also there's this element of adding on to what you're saying is that the change in economy was a big thing, because it's like
yep,
the the Gothic period of art coincides pretty well with like the hardest parts of the Middle Ages, where life was just reaching at the apex of misery in some point, the plague and the war. And then you have the Renaissance and you have a relative peace in some cases, and you have
yeah,
people are doing better and people are healthier. So the type of art we want to see is not the gaunt saint who looks like they're
yes,
starving, because that's no longer is that the symbol for holiness and piety, right? And now it's like it's this idea of a world that's plentiful and that offers you
yes,
all this good stuff, and you have all you have you have food available, and every so then the Renaissance images, everybody looks so strong and healthy, and they
Yeah.
all have this like blush in their skin, and I would also argue that because the economy was better and people weren't suffering as much, their ability to focus on improving their art, it was just like it's
Oh,
just
for sure.
it's then you get the Baroque period where everything is like super opulent, and every image is like a succulent human being. Everybody's like,
Yeah,
you
it's
know
crazy.
everything is so
And like
juicy and like, yeah,
the church funded essentially the entire Renaissance.
it's crazy. Yeah.
It's yeah, they like art was like the thing. It was like the method of like it was great. And then it has a big crossover with my other favorite thing that happened in that time period where they were kind of rediscovering Rome, like all the lost technology and
Yeah.
advances that
Yeah.
Rome had that everybody just kind of forgot about.
Yep.
Where it's like, oh, why did statues look so good
Mm-hmm.
1,000 years ago, and now our statues look like shit? Or like, oh, how did they do this thing that we just forgot how to do? Like, okay,
Yeah.
like yeah, a lot of that started to happen around that time period too.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's totally true, and like if you even look at the way the costumes changed that people wore, like a
Yeah,
lot of the like people don't even realize the medieval armor that we know is the plate armor of like the medieval knight with the smooth helmet and the little bits of the feathers coming out of the back of the helmet, and the shape of it, like this shape right here that I'm with Arthur, I'm showing it on
yeah,
screen now. That is actually a throwback to the Roman centurion, because in the Renaissance they
yes,
were trying to reference the. It's like so fascinating because people we forget, because for us everything is like the past is just the past. It's like it's
yeah,
all just one like amorphous like leftover lasagna that that you it no longer has its stacks in place, but like that lasagna once had like many layers to it. Um, I don't know why I must be hungry. That's why my brain's going to food, but
no, it's all good. It's
um
on his taste.
um oh man, well yeah, I mean I think I've had your lasagna. It's fucking incredible. Um,
Thank you, buddy.
but yeah, so like we forget that like we have there's something crazy that someone said that like we are closer to the Renaissance than the Renaissance was to like the early Middle Ages.
Oh, for sure. We're
It's
like what, 700 years away from the start of the Renaissance? Yeah,
yeah, well I think even
yeah,
less than that, like 500.
even less. Yeah, 500. Yeah,
So it's like, and then the Renaissance from the beginning of the Middle Ages is like literally 800 years. It's like I think the no, or even 1,000. Yeah, okay. So I think
yeah,
the Middle Ages is like 500 to 1,500. So like
yeah.
it's crazy. We think we're so far away from that stuff. We're still in the middle of it now. Like we're in the Enlightenment period.
Right.
And there's been theories that one of the reasons we're facing so much cultural conflict is because we're nearing the end of the Enlightenment, because it's like that period of
Yeah,
time is ending its.
which cyclically does not bode well for us. For what typically comes after Enlightenment periods, but
Yeah, yeah,
you know,
it's true.
we'll get our Bell riots. Star Trek fans out there.
Yep, I was just thinking that where it's like the end of the 22nd century is just like
Uh,
horrible bloodshed, but then after you and I are dead for like 8 generations, we're going to be in outer space, and we're going to be having weird flirtations with Vulcans. It's going to be great, man.
yeah, it's gonna be sick. It's gonna be so sick. But
Um,
yeah, I can't remember how we got on. Oh yeah, Islamic art. Yeah,
yeah.
I just like Islamic art because it's all the other thing I like that Islamic art does, which is very very unique to Islamic art. I,
Hmm.
I don't think it really exists in any other culture. Is the calligraphy is trying to capture visually what the poems sound like when they're sung.
Hmm.
So like when you look at the calligraphy, it's like dancing across the page. It's like you can like follow the flow of the art intersected with the calligraphy, and like the calligraphy is such an art form in that culture,
Yeah.
and you're like seeing the song. It's like a weird sensory thing of like they're trying to convey the lyricism just with the physical form of it, and
Hmm.
it's so interesting. It's just really it's just such a unique blend of things and sensory things that I don't really find in any other culture.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a really good example about of. I think it's a perfect example of how working with certain rules and limitations can actually make you far more creative.
Yeah,
Like not being able to like you're not allowed to illustrate a human being, because it's like I believe that the understanding from what I have of Islamic art is like, it's like, that's God's domain, is to make a human. You don't do that.
Yes, you don't do
Um,
that.
so as per that belief, it's like they're like, well, what's available? What's available is like beautiful geometric shapes that are pleasing to the
Yes.
eye, and I remember when Malka was she was in, I think, Istanbul years
Mm.
ago. This is she was traveling alone, and she was sending me pictures of some of the art there, and it's like, she's like, I've never seen anything like this. And I think
Yeah.
she prefers it to the Western stuff. I mean, she, like, she enjoyed the churches that we saw in Italy, but like I was in love with it, where she was like, yeah, I don't know, I think I like the shapes and patterns more.
Yeah. It's also part of that, like, there's a lot of back and forth in the, a certain period of time where the Crusades were happening,
Hmm.
where we would conquer, I'm saying Westerners
Yeah.
would conquer
Yeah.
Eastern places.
People from
And they,
Massachusetts.
yes, people from Massachusetts, Westerners would conquer Eastern places, demolish what was there, build a giant opulent cathedral, and go like, look how fucking awesome we are. Look at this thing we built
Yeah.
on your, like, you should really believe the stuff we believe, because look how incredible this is. Then the Easterners would come in and demolish the cathedral, or sometimes build on top of it and turn it into an incredible, even more impressive mosque. They go, no, 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 no. Look at this thing that we built. It's even crazier than your cathedral. Then the Westerners would come back in and demolish that, or build on top again. No, this. What about our second cathedral? Though it's even better. And they would do this like weird ping pong game of trying to like outdo each other with the opulence and the splendor for like hundreds of years.
Yeah.
So it was like this weird ratcheting up of like who can be even more impressive.
Well, you described
Like,
it as an artistic arms race, which I was like, that is 100% accurate.
yeah, it
Yeah.
essentially was, because that was how they sold like whose god is more god, which is ironic because it's the same
It's
god
literally
because
the
they're all
same.
Abrahamic. But it's, yeah, it's like
Yeah.
whose god is god. And the way that they did that primarily to like sell it to the common people was who could make the most splendid, wonderful,
Yeah.
miraculous looking, impressive shit. Because like, clearly, that must mean that your
Yeah.
god is god, even though it's the
Yeah.
same god.
Literally it's my version
But
of God. It's
yeah,
not, it's like, it's crazy. It's like, imagine any other. It's
yeah,
like I'm a really big fan of the early music of the Beatles, but you're a really big fan of the later music of the Beatles, and then you and I start
yes,
a 20-year holy war about which is the best
yes,
album from the same band.
100%, 100%.
It's like,
It's a war worth fighting. Millions will die, but
yeah, like, at
no,
least
it's great.
when it's like a war between monotheists and pagans or something, I'm like, okay, well, at least I get it, because those two worldviews like can't exist together in a lot of ways, because, or they can exist
Yes,
together, but at least in the ancient world, it's like they're literally, like, it determines two totally different societies. But like, if you look at parts of the Crusades, like there were points where Christians and Muslims were kind of living in peace and chilling out. Like they were,
yes,
mostly in the East, because they were like, yeah, we don't really care.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. And like another thing I love about the art is Dune really captured this really well,
yeah,
like Frank Herbert's Dune. What do the people worship in Dune? They worship water, because water is the rare thing. It's like it's this necessary thing that doesn't exist in this harsh climate they're in. And in Islamic art, if you look at the patterns very closely, it's not just squiggles, it's usually vines and flowers, because they're like celebrating life in a climate where cultivating that and like, mastering the environment in a way that you can turn a desert into a garden is part of like the cultural heritage for that part of the
yeah,
world. It's like
yeah,
defying the reality that you've been given, and mastering,
hmm,
mastering your environment to the point where you can turn sand into grass, which is pretty insane, especially for a primitive culture. So like a lot of the art is, almost all of it is based on plants. It's based on vines, it's based on flowers and things that grow, because for them that was like a very meaningful thing, because where they were, that was like, the only way to live was to force things to grow. They weren't growing naturally.
yeah. And also, so interestingly, the movie kind of glosses over this for reasons I guess I understand it, but in the book, the Fremen, the desert people, are actually like pretty intensely monotheistic. Like that they
Mm.
actually, they're actually a combination of all the Abrahamic religions, because the whole idea is that Dune is ten
I know
thousand.
that. I never read the book.
Oh, really?
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah, it's really cool. In the book, he basically goes over this thing where It's 10,000 years, and over 10,000 years, between now and then, essentially Jews, Christians, and Muslims just slowly morph back into one Abrahamic religion.
Okay,
So
cool.
like they have like a combination of the philosophies, and it all kind of morphs into one thing, which is essentially what the Fremen are, is that they're a combination of like, that's why they seem vaguely Islamic, but then there's also like elements of like Jews wandering in the desert, and
Yeah,
then
okay.
their sacred book is called the Orange Catholic Bible. I don't know why it's called the Orange. I don't know, but it's interesting because like they do, like they have a saying in the book where they say like God, that God created Arrakis Dune. He created Arrakis to test the faithful, and then like
Oh,
that's why our lives are so hard. But then they also have a thing that's kind of contradictory where they worship the great worm, almost
right.
like they see the worm as being God on their world. It's like their religion is so complicated, but it's interesting because the movie creates this idea, like you're saying, that they're really their idea of paradise is the grass and the trees that they don't have, which is like the whole purpose of having a religion, is right, is to imagine something better than where you are now.
Right.
So their idea of that is like a place where there's water and there's trees and there's but I thought the movie did a really good job of like touching upon it but not lingering on it too long, because if you make the movie about religion, you're going to lose some
Yeah,
people.
you're gonna lose everybody.
um
But yeah, that's actually very interesting. That's like my favorite part of the Quran is where I think Muhammad goes out to, oh God, I think Muhammad is led out to where the meteor fell, which is now the Dome of the Rock, I believe. And it's like the first version of the Super Friends. Like an angel shows up and then he's like, Moses is here and
yeah,
Jesus is here. And it's like all the prophets, and like they were all prophets of God, because it's like now we can all join forces and lead the people. And it's like, this is very funny that you're just putting all of them here.
yeah, it has a very fanfic feel
It
to it.
really does.
Yeah.
It really does. It's like the first ever Marvel versus DC, except they're all friends.
I mean,
It's very, yeah.
I think in terms of sentiment, I think that's very
I think it's
positive.
very good sentiment. Yes, it's very,
Like,
it's much better than, you're wrong and I'm gonna crucify you again.
I'm
It's like,
gonna
no,
crucify you
no, no,
again.
no. I like that they're like, no, 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 they're all prophets of the book. And
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I love Eastern art just because it's so, I don't know, it's every inch of everything has to be covered in the most meticulous but also perfectly balanced, geometrically satisfying, tessellating pattern. Like there's so much math in it too, because obviously the culture was like gave us algebra, and like there's so much perfect geometry and symmetry and like calculated positive and negative space, and all the patterns are very mathematically balanced, which
Yeah.
is just, it's not, you see very ornate things in a lot of Western art, especially like Orthodox stuff.
Yeah.
But you don't see a ton of like balance and patterns. You see a lot of, we're going to make this the most detailed gaudy thing possible, but it's not, it's almost kind of clunky in a way that I love. Like a lot of Warhammer leans into Orthodox stuff,
Yeah.
where it's like it's very impressive, but it's not like it's kind of like dwarves versus elves, like the aesthetics. Orthodox stuff is kind of like you could see it in like a dwarven culture. It's like big shapes covered in like gems and stones
Yeah.
and
It's
carved, and
very
it's very
robust.
like very robust, and it looks like everything almost looks like the top of a mace, like you could swing it and smash it into something. It's like,
Yeah.
and everything in the Eastern stuff is very elvish in the sense that it's very dainty and thin, and the lines are very wispy, and everything is knots, and it's weird. It's almost, it's very similar to Celtic art, because Celtic art was also taken from vine patterns
Yeah.
and things that grow. There's a weird symmetry between the two because they both came out of nature.
Yeah. Well, I was
Um,
also going to say that I think because Muslim artists were not allowed to depict people, they're trying to
yeah,
bring something organic into the patterns. And then it's like
yeah,
because the Western art was like so focused on figures and organics, then the
yes,
architecture around it becomes very like very like the opposite. It's like robust and like almost not quite brutalist, but it's like solid, and it feels heavy to like
Well,
contrast. The,
down to the yeah, all the way to the point where cathedrals are shaped like people because they're shaped like a crucifix.
yeah,
Like the architecture of that culture mimicked the aesthetics of human. Everything is based on humans. It's every cathedral is shaped like a cross because a cross is the shape of a person because you put a person on a cross.
yeah,
And it's everything comes back to people.
yeah, yeah. It's
But
it's it's
yeah,
hard to separate that from your how you see things, but yeah, there's something
yeah,
really amazing about seeing that, and then you like for me, I actually, I mean, as much as I love Western art and like obviously and everything I draw has some element of it, I sometimes I wonder, I actually feel like the art of the Far East, like Asia, is
yeah,
it's closer to the art I actually try to make, because
yeah.
it's like because you get where I'm going with this, right? Like line art and
Mhm.
watercolor and like I'm not someone, my work does not in any way resemble like an oil painting, you know. If
Sure.
anything, the work that I'm looking at that's like closer to the stuff I actually draw, it probably looks a lot more like the Asian watercolors that are just like a beautiful, elegant line art with
Mhm.
some nice color underneath it, and it's a whole other thing that's like, I mean, like I love, I mean, you've been to the Met in New York.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Like comics in general have a lot more DNA in common with like ukiyo wood blocks than they do with like Michelangelo.
yeah,
You know?
that's exactly,
Yeah,
absolutely, yeah, and it's there's a room that's or there's a whole section that's like just the art of the Far East, and it's just like you can walk around in recreations of ancient Japanese homes.
that's so cool.
And it's like it's like the show Shogun, where you're just like, it's literally just a square, but it's so beautiful and elegant, and it's not cluttered with anything. It's like it's just
Yeah,
beautifully placed objects, lots of open space and like a feeling of openness, and it's so fucking relaxing.
their whole thing was bringing the outside inside,
Yeah, I love that stuff.
which I
Yeah.
love. It's such a cool thing. I was thinking of you actually. I played that new Indiana Jones game.
Oh, was it good?
Uh, it was fantastic. It's the best. It's the best Indiana Jones story since Raiders, for sure.
Awesome.
It's fantastic. And
That's cool as hell.
I was thinking of you because the first chapter is in the Vatican and they do a scale recreation of the Sistine Chapel you can walk around in. And I was like, oh, I can finally see it, kind of, not really, but I was like, this must be really cool in VR. But yeah,
Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah. Uh,
it was cool.
I actually was thinking about getting it, but I wanted to hear somebody like I know tell me what they thought of it before I did.
Extremely good game. I didn't do most of the side content. I just did the main story pretty much.
Hmm.
I can't believe how good an impression of Harrison Ford, Troy
Troy Baker,
Baker
yeah, Troy Baker, yeah, yeah.
does. It's shocking. It's like it's shocking
He is he.
how good it
I don't
is.
know how he does it, but he is a shockingly talented guy. Like his
Yeah,
ability, his voice is so versatile,
yeah.
and
They got the balance right. They got the indie balance, which is the hard thing to get of real historical events peppered with mystical reasons why they might have happened.
mm,
That it's like there's a lot of like the Philadelphia experiment in the plot, which I wasn't expecting, and I was like, oh, we're doing like real historical mysteries, but
yeah,
like we're okay, cool, and it goes in directions that I did not see coming, but were very satisfying and very well thought out. They all made sense.
and like
Where
yeah. Sorry, go on.
it's that thing where at first you're like, whoa, what? And then you think about it for a second and you're like, oh, that's actually super clever. Like, okay, like this makes a ton of sense.
That's really cool.
But yeah, it's great. You're gonna love it. There's a whole dungeon under the Vatican where like you have to forge the papal keys to like put them in the hands of oh god, there's like a forge you have to turn on and it's surrounded by statues of angels holding swords. And when you turn the forge on, the swords catch on fire and like underlight the angels. It's so fucking sick. You're gonna love it. You're
Okay.
gonna love it.
Well, then that settles it. Because I've actually been looking for something to play. Because I'm just replaying old games now. Because I there's
Oh
nothing.
man, it's good.
Okay, that's good. Well, then I'm gonna do that. And on that note, I think I have to go because I gotta take my car to
Okay, buddy.
get worked on. But thank you so much for making the time, dude. I know you're busy. This was a lot of fun.
Always a pleasure. Yeah.
Thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll do it again soon. All right, guys.
Yeah.
Bye, y'all. Bye, Dan.
Later, man.
All right, guys. That's it for me.